Suns are looking to bounce back from Wednesday's brutal loss ahead of Game 5 in Phoenix tonight. Fox Bet Sportsbook has the Suns as slight favorites to take a series lead, but they'll need a bigger contribution out of Chris Paul, who was held to just 10 points on 5 of 13 shooting while also committing a costly late turnover in Game 4, which we remember. So, Shannon, what do you expect from Chris Paul and the Suns tomorrow?
Well, I expect him to play better. I don't believe Chris Paul can play any worse than what he played the other night. And I know, Skip, you said this is probably one of his worst games, if not the worst game of his career. And Chris Paul has played a long time. He's had some bad games, I'm sure you. But when you factor the moment, this is an NBA Finals, Game 4, you think about the stage in which he's on and how hard he's talked about waiting a lifetime for this moment, and for him to play as poorly as he played. Skip, I'm not saying scoring the points. The scoring the points, yeah, you'd like to have Chris Paul score 20 and get you 10 assists. But it was the turnovers. It was the ineffectiveness in which he, turnover after turnover, when they were right there in the ball game. That's what was so disappointing. And I'm sure when Chris Paul looks back at this film, he's like, man, was that me? Or was that somebody impersonating me? Because I'm the point guard. I'm not supposed to play this bad in a situation like this. Big-time players play big in big moments. Well, I look at Chris Paul as even though he's a small player, Skip, he's a big-time player that plays well, and this was a big-time moment, and I expect him to play well. So I expect Chris Paul to play well. The question is, what are they going to do to get Ayton more involved, and what are they going to do to try to neutralize some of Giannis' penetration, playing at the rim? Because, Skip, this guy's shooting almost 80%. He's shooting 80% against everybody that's not named DeAndre Ayton. He's shooting less than 40% against Ayton, and he's attempted 9 3-pointers against Ayton. He's attempted 1 against everybody else. So therein lies the dilemma right there. Ayton's going to have to stay out of foul trouble, and they're going to have to do a better job of neutralizing Giannis. Middleton got hot. But, Chris, as far as Chris Paul, I expect Chris Paul to play. Do I expect 41 closeout Chris Paul against the Clippers? No, I do not. Because I don't believe Holiday, and I think that's what's hurting Holiday's offensive production. He's exerting so much on the defensive end.
I agree.
I mean, Skip, he's picking Chris Paul up 94 feet every possession. But you say, that's okay. We got Middleton. We got Giannis. They can give us 60, 70 points between the two. Anything you give us, as long as you keep Chris Paul neutralized, we'll accept that. But I expect Chris Paul to play better than much better than what he played on Wednesday.
So I think you're leaning Suns tomorrow night?
I am leaning Suns tomorrow night.
I guess I am too, but I'm to the point where I am lost on this series. And the shock of shocks is CP3, Chris Paul, the point guard, has become the wild card in this series. The X factor is that guy. I cannot get it through my head that one day here, sitting right across from me, you were campaigning for campaign to get more minutes, and Chris Paul fewer minutes because he was starting to look old against my Clippers, and you were correct. And he came right out of that to Game 6 and shot them right out of the playoffs. I've never seen anything like it before. He played his greatest game to end the Clippers series at Staples in Game 6, had another great game in Game 1 at home against the Bucks, and then we went all the way to a Game 4 at Milwaukee, and he played absolutely his worst playoff game ever. It has to be the worst game of his entire career, obviously given the magnitude, the stakes. And he, above all others, cost his team a 3-1 lead, a commanding, know, like a championship. It would have been a virtual done deal. If Chris hadn't played that poorly and committed certainly those atrocities of turnovers in the fourth quarter. Especially the one with 32 seconds left. I still don't know what was happening. You know, he gets the switch onto Giannis, and then he palmed the ball and completely turns it over to his right hand, and then just unforced error, just lost the handle.
Skip, he just lost his footing.
I don't know.
He just falls. Look at this, Skip, he falls.
I don't know. How do you... And then they get an easy run out to Middleton the other way, and it's game over.
Yes.
That's the point guard. That was it. That's the flashpoint of the whole game. Phoenix was up 9 early fourth. They were up 5 with 5:30 left in the fourth, and they could not close a deal that would have virtually closed out Milwaukee in the finals. So I don't know what to expect from Chris, except I think he'll bounce back. His stats for the whole series are pretty good. He's 53% from the floor, 44% from three. That's for all 4 games. The problem's been he's averaging 4.3 turnovers per game. That's not Chris Paul. That's not him. It's hard to win that way.
It really is. And Skipper, you know this. It's kind of like football. All turnovers are not equal.
No.
A guy throws an interception in the first quarter, and then all of a sudden you throw one late in the fourth quarter. Your turnover carries more weight than his. Well, it wasn't the 2 turnovers that Chris Paul had in the very first minutes of the ball game that doomed him, because you had a lot of play in between. It was the last 2 that prevented you from getting shots at the basket. Who knows what would have happened? Maybe you get fouled. Maybe you get a bucket. Maybe you get an and one. We don't know, but what we do know is that those turnovers led directly to Milwaukee getting runouts and getting baskets, and you got nothing in return. But I expect them to play better, Skip, and the Suns are going to have to do a much better job of keeping the Bucks off the glass.
Yeah.
Skip, I mean, they're getting crushed on the glass, especially offensively. You can't give a team like this that many opportunities at you. You did a great job forcing them to take ill-advised shots. Okay, now punish them even more by getting the rebound.
Yeah.
But when they take bad shots and they get the rebound, they're basically saying, Skip, it doesn't matter the shot.
No.
We're going to get the board anyway.
Okay, so to me, this is shaping up to be the classic home court advantage finals, where the home team wins every game, which would mean Phoenix would end up winning a Game 7 at home to win the championship.
Skip, I wouldn't chance that, though, Skip.
Well,
not with
you've always said
Giannis.
Who knows what could happen in a Game 7.
Yeah.
It's just shaping up that way to me. And the reason it is because Giannis does not make as many free throws on the road as he does at home, clearly because he doesn't have a crowd chanting 1, 2, 3, 4 and trying to speed up the count on him to shoot it before he's ready psychologically to shoot it. So what have we seen in games 1 and 2? Giannis went 7 of 12 in game 1 at Phoenix and 11 of 18 free throws in game 2. So that's a grand total of 18 of 30 at Phoenix that he made, which is not terrible, but it's still 60%. At home, he made 68% in games 3 and 4. Well, that's a significant difference because he shoots a lot of free throws. So I'm guessing that Phoenix is just going to say, let's just attack him. Let's make him shoot free throws. Let's let our crowd try to get in his psyche and discombobulate him and get him out of whack and out of rhythm, get him frustrated, and hope that he'll just come unglued because we're quick counting him at the free throw line. So I think that the crowd advantage is the Giannis free throw line advantage in Game 5.
Skip, you know, and the Phoenix Suns should be very fortunate. They're minus 29 on offensive rebounding. They're minus 26 in rebounding in general. You don't normally lose the rebounding battle by those kinds of discrepancies throughout and you only play 4 games and be tied 2-2. So you're very fortunate when you're giving up this kind of discrepancies on the window, on the glass, and you're still tied 2-2 and you're going back home. So just imagine, and like Monty said, well, we can clean that up. Well, when are you going to clean it up? You talked about it game 1, talked about it game 2, talked about it game 3, talked about it in game 4. You keep talking about it. One of the reasons why I can't be a coach, because that's something like Monty said. We talked about this, guys, and we go out there and we don't do what we talked about. I'm losing my mind. I'm yelling and screaming. That's the difference between basketball coaches and football coaches, Skip, because you know basketball coaches, they're a little bit more subtle. You know if you go over something with a football coach, you've been in with Jimmy, you've been around coaches, they're going to lose their mind. Guys, we practice all week. We say they're going to try to get the ball and pull the ball out, and what the hell do? We go out there and let them pull 2 of them out, and we expect to win the ball game. Monty was calm. Monty was like, guys, these things are fixable.
Well, he was also mic'd up and on TV, so he knew that. But listen, if you'd put Jimmy Johnson in that role, he would have called out Chris Paul and said, you're better than that. And Devin Booker, you're better than your 5th foul and your potential 6th foul. We can't live with you playing
Right.
that kind of dumb basketball. That's what Jimmy
Yes.
would have said.
Yes, most football coaches would have said that, because normally Mike would say, "Hey, he'd always tell," because the camera people come in right after the game because they're doing footage because you have local broadcast, right? Mike was like, "Hold up," and then Mike go say what he wants to go say, what he gonna say to us, and then once the cameras come in there, guys, we got to play better. Man, that ain't what you just said.
No.
You just cursed us out, and now you're gonna talk about we just need to play better. These things are correctable.
Okay.
But we're going to
So-
find out if they're correctable on Saturday.
I got it. Bottom line for me, if you look at the playoff careers of Chris Paul and Giannis, they've both had more than their share of disasters and disappointments.
Okay.
So now, from here on, 5, 6, maybe 7, it's going to be which of these superstars is less disappointing. Somebody's going to have to be less disappointing and win this thing, maybe by default. That's why I'm still on the edge of my seat.
Skip, here's another thing. Chris Paul is going to have to give some assistance to Book, because if Giannis doesn't play well, we see Middleton is starting to heat up. And we know, Skip, he can win you a game by himself. Although he's not a superstar, we just saw him go get 40. We saw him last year in the bubble when Giannis was out, go get a 50-piece. We saw what he did against the Nets down the stretch, games 5, game 6, game 7. He's their closer. So Chris Paul has to come along because he's one of the few other guys that can go get his own shot. Ayton is dependent on Chris Paul.
Yep.
He's dependent on somebody getting him the ball. Well, Chris Middleton doesn't need anybody getting the ball because he can